Just gonna fixate on you and then I'll close it out.
Lovely. Abby's, the only person who can appoint the planning commissioner is running late. So we're trying to stall,
Yeah.
but she
She
won't be
wants us
here.
to drone on about anything else.
We'll talk.
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's what I would recommend.
So what does that mean, Daniel, that we're gonna sit here?
Well, it's not a huge agenda, it's not a
Okay,
huge
I
agenda,
understand.
but we do need like 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it won't be hours and hours.
Trying to get a cup of coffee, come back.
You may get to hear from the fabulous Linda Teeter.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Alright, good.
Oh, I've never had that before.
So should I prepare like 10 minutes?
Daniel,
Mhm.
what about that Tuesday meeting? Anything going on with that?
We're gonna do it.
Okay. at 1 o'clock.
Tuesday, it's gonna be you and Brenda, 1 o'clock at the CVB,
Okay, at the CD,
at the CVB.
I don't know where that is.
Is it across from Farmhouse Deli, you know, the building with the fish
The
sculpture?
Thelma Coughlin, isn't it Thelma Coughlin building that donated it?
It probably is, yeah, it's like, it used to be an art gallery,
Yes.
yeah, that's it, we're gonna meet there,
Cool,
so we are on, so I think it's gonna be great.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 11:01 and being the clerk in the absence of the supervisor, I will call this meeting to order. This is the special board meeting of Monday, June 30, 2025 at 11 a.m. at the Saugatuck Township Hall. And I will go ahead and call the roll. Helmrich? Not here, excused. Bigford will be here a little bit later. Aldrich,
Here,
Marcy,
here.
Osmond, here. We do have a quorum. And it looks like, we can do the pledge of allegiance. Everybody can stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Presentations. We don't have a presentation today, but the treasurer's report, because John is not here. The planning commission report, I was at the planning commission last week, where we heard from the people who are doing the Singapore retreat, which is kind of behind John's house and and the board did approve their plan with about 14 or 16 conditions. And one of the things that they asked for the board to consider was to expedite the traffic study at that intersection where it's very busy, these 6 corners. It's very difficult to get through, and they knew that that was part of the Blue Star Safety Plan, but they wanted to expedite as much as the board is able to get that done, and get some action on that, because it will be adding 30 dwelling units onto that already busy intersection.
Is the developer requesting this or residents?
The planning commission.
Planning.
And they are recommending to the board to approve the rezoning to a PUD. Because they could have 28 units with no planning commission review, or 38 units with a lot of conditions and a lot of more regulatory influence. Did I miss anything, Denise?
Well, we've already rezoned a portion of that. I think you remember we rezoned a portion of that parcel from a C2 to a R1. Get very like an acre or two. And the PUD, no, I think we got it, most of it is, we understand that they could put something in there, it's residential. And so the planning commission did their very best to realize that if you could put 28 units in there and you could just do it by right. Versus when he went to the PUD, it increased from 28 units to 30 units, but we were able to put all these conditions on to make it better in regards to the surrounding areas. So we knew that something was going to happen there. We were able to protect Goshen Creek a little better. We were able to add a little bit more buffering. We put some other conditions on in regards to the ordinance so that the short-term rentals, no short-term rentals. And so there were a lot of things that the PUD, even though I know that the residents around there were not happy, but they were going to do something anyways. So that we thought that. And the other part was that we're really, and as we've heard from many of the residents in this township, as long as I've been here, and I've only been here since 20, is that intersection of 135, 65 and Blue Star, that is becoming more and more dangerous. We studied that in regards to the Blue Star safety corridor, and we know that, and that, yes, the consultants did provide us a conceptual of what that could be, but with this PUD coming in, I don't think that plan would work. And so that we need to figure out something about that intersection. The planning commission heard it, and one thing that I heard from a residents when we started the Blue Star is it's really a shame that we wait until we have a fatality in order to do something at that intersection. And the planning commission encourages the township to really, we don't need a traffic study, because the traffic study right now isn't going to show a difference in traffic study, because that PUD is not going to come in for another 3 years. Fully. So, but it's looking at that intersection, and we need to do something about that intersection. So that's really that came out of that meeting. Thank you. Thanks, Denise.
And to follow up with Denise's comments, the road commission has put in a request with the regional road authority for funding for a roundabout at that intersection. So that they put the money in for 2028. I talked to Craig Atwood, the director, and he said that is a very flexible year. It's just that they need to get in a request, but it could be moved up from there. But they're kind of identifying that as the next intersection that needs some modification. They're not really fans of traffic lights, the Allegan County Road Commission.
It's because of broadsiding.
Broadsiding and managing them, and so their recommendations for a roundabout.
And I'm not opposed to roundabouts. I think that they have their place. I'm not convinced that intersection is appropriate for a roundabout, but that's my feeling. Because you have so many roads coming in, that's gonna have to be in with the dunes, rides there, and Blue Star, gym there. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But as a individual, you go up to Holland, and they have many of these intersection ones at Lincoln and State, and I think it's 5 roads, and they have a traffic light. I think it's 132nd, I think is what, it's like, okay, I understand the traffic lights, I get that, but as many people who want to cross there to get to the bike path, I just don't think a roundabout is our best choice. So that's my thing. As a person who lives there and has to cross there and get to the bike path, and watching people go up and down, and people wanting to get up to Clearbrook, and they go down, come off the Blue Star, and they stream up 65 or 135. It really is terrible. They're gonna have to do a lot there in order. And again, I'm roundabout. That's my thing.
Would that, if there were a roundabout, would it be able, I think the problem with, not that there's a problem, people are getting used to it. That I think geographically, it could be a little larger, correct? Because it's a flat area.
It's a flatter area, you have more land to work with. Like you're saying, there's nothing wrong with the old Allegan roundabout, it's just that it's smaller than I think what people's expectations are, but roundabouts come in all sizes, but yeah, there would be more room to work at that intersection than there was room available at Old Allegan. I mean, it can continue to be an open conversation, but it's gonna have to be a dialogue with the road commission because ultimately they have jurisdiction over our road, so we're just gonna keep the communication lines open and let them know what our preferences are, and see if we can reach a decision that everybody, is happy and comfortable with.
And I would encourage the board to keep the foot on the pedal because something needs to be done in that intersection.
Yeah, the hospital really generates a lot of traffic as well. Knowing how I've been there quite a bit recently, there is a lot of traffic from that.
And I feel if we could put a center or turn lane, I think that would make a huge difference on Blue Star. Just so people aren't so anxious to get around and,
Yes, because some of the deceleration lanes are less than great.
Right.
The one that to the hospital is especially narrow.
Mhm.
Actually, that's not a deceleration lane, that's a bike lane. People use it as a deceleration lane, but it's a bike lane, we're not supposed to be over there.
Yeah, alright, we should move it on.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, manager report.
I don't have a formal report, but I just wanna update you, we're still working through the server issue, we do have a server in the building, it is updating. It's not active right now. We are preparing a statement to inform the public that the tax bills are gonna be late this year. Typically, we like to get them out July 1st, state statute says they have to be out in July, there's no specific date. So we're gonna let the public know that they'll be out by mid-July, I think that that's a comfortable date because there's still some things that we have to do on the back end to prepare everything and then print everything out, and it's gonna be a team effort stuffing envelopes, but yeah, we are preparing a statement for the public, and that'll go out in our newsletter, that will be on our website, and Facebook, so. But yeah, that's still a work in progress, it's very frustrating for everybody, but we're getting closer. And then the other thing is, I was supposed to put it on the special meeting agenda and there's just been so much coming up. We never did the manager performance evaluation, so perhaps we could plan for it for the July meeting. But just throwing it out.
Sure.
Okay, and that's really, everything else I'm gonna save it for our regular meeting in July.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, now we come to the public comment portion of the meeting. So persons who would like to speak can come up to the microphone, state their name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. If you're 5 minutes, you can go 5 minutes if you're speaking on behalf of a group. Is there anybody that would like to make a public comment?
There's nobody in Zoom.
Nobody in Zoom, nobody in the audience. Okay. We'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and move on to agenda approval.
I move that we approve the agenda with consideration of moving number 13-1 commission appointments to the end of the new business.
Okay, so we have a motion by Marcy.
I'll support, that was how.
Seconded by Marcy. All those in favor?
Is that it?
Oh, no.
Wait a minute. Can I add to that?
Yeah,
I move.
I don't even know.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Yes,
You're fine.
I didn't know.
Moved by Aldrich, supported by Marcy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? We don't have a clerk's report, but the clerk has nothing to report, except that there will be an August election, and we have all our work identified. Yes. The other comments or questions about the consent agenda? Non-correspondence? None?
That's part of the consent agenda, right? Yeah, not right.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Presented.
Moved by Aldrich, supported by Marcy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0, and let the record reflect that, Ms. Bickford joined the meeting at 11:16 and will now be taking over as supervisor in the meeting.
Thank you, Clerk Osmond. Thank you. Very sorry, the reschedule didn't make it to my calendar, but luckily, little Outlook reminders. Got me a little casual today. This is farm fresh. Okay, so that brings us, we do not have any items up until other new business. So let's fast forward to number 13, commission appointments. We have a planning commission appointment to make today. What pages?
18.
All right, Daniel, would you like to give us a little bit more information on this subject?
Absolutely, so we are filling 2 vacancies on the planning commission today. They are for full 3-year terms that are going to expire June 30th, 2028. We have Commissioner David Eiley and Denise Webster requesting reappointment. Denise Webster is here today. We also have Doug Manning, who's put in an application for consideration for planning commission. Mr. Eiley has been acting as the chair of the planning commission, I want to say for the last 2 years. And then Ms. Webster is a very active member of the planning commission, I think very well respected, and has also served on the Blue Star Highway Safety Committee, which was a huge help. And now we have our Blue Star Highway Safety Plan that we're looking to implement over the next few years. I think this is a great opportunity too to hear from Doug Manning. He's expressed interest in the planning commission, he's attended a board meeting. I believe that he was at least at the last planning commission meeting and planning commission meetings before. I think that either, Mr. Manning would be a good consideration for appointment now, or definitely if he continues to be interested, appointment at a later time. That's kind of the update I have, other than we've also updated the application for appointment to reflect our new policies. So we have some questions that we've asked the applicants, and I've also asked them to kind of reflect on township core values and why they want to serve this particular organization.
In the past, we have interviewed applicants. I understand Dave cannot be here. We know Dave, we probably wouldn't have any questions for him. But would the trustees like to just have both Denise and Doug take the podium and for a little. Sure. Okay. Denise, we'll pick on you first. Do you want to come up and tell us about your time on the planning commission and your interest in it? Sure, yes, let's make it official, okay? Tell us about your time on the planning commission and your desire to continue.
Hello, good to see you again. I've been, was appointed to the planning commission in 2021. It was a replacement term, and then I was reappointed in 2022 for a 3-year term, and now I'm come back to ask for a reappointment. I've had a lot of experience with planning. I was up in mid-Michigan, Isabella County, Planning Commission for 9 years, I think I was there. And also served on their ZBA. When I went to, I moved out of the city and into a township who became home ruled. So I had to come out of the county commission, and then I moved into a union township. My last 3 years as I was up in Mount Pleasant and served on their planning commission. So I've had a lot of experience in understanding planning, zoning. As a faculty member at Central Michigan University, was very involved with strategic planning, so I understand the master plan. So I'm just continuing the interest in serving the community and planning and zoning for whatever reason I've become very interested in. So I would just request, this reappointment again.
Real quick, Denise, tell us about like what do you feel most proud of, or what's a big accomplishment since you've been on the, that you've been part of?
Oh, boy.
You've done a lot of things.
Well, the Blue Star Safety Corridor Plan was very interesting, and I'm glad that we completed that. The new zoning ordinance was a huge accomplishment of the Planning Commission, and was involved with that. I think those are the two biggies, since, besides all the other different rulings that we did and that we have accomplished. I think the next really big area that this township needs to consider is updating the master plan. That master plan was 2016, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of things have changed. Tons of things have changed, and even the 5 years that I've been involved with this township in regards to this area, but there's so much more of not just, we get so used to being here on Blue Star, that there is other parts of the township that we really need to take also care of, and understanding non-motorized travel is one of the biggest ones, and we want to be a pedestrian township and a non-motorized township. We need to really take care of things. So those would be the, zoning ordinance and the Blue Star would be my two.
How about the ordinances?
Oh, all the different ones that like,
No, reviewing. Wasn't that a major?
yes, the zoning ordinance, yes, and we just did the Lake Shore.
Overlay, too.
Overlay, yes.
For the
Yes, that was the other one.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a big one too. And so, yes,
One thing I've really kept an eye on the planning commission, and I feel it's such an important part of our organization, and I've noticed that you really contribute a lot, and you've been attendance, it's been stellar, I think, I mean.
yes, I did miss one because my mom had hip surgery, so. This is all, none of that. Yes.
And
I'm a
you do offer a different approach to some things, and I think that's a lot from your past experience and knowledge, so I like what you contribute to the planning commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy, for your continued interest.
Lot of good work has been done, and a lot, again, this township is growing, and I mean, close to Blue Star, but and those of us who live here, we get used to just thinking, well, everything, this township is all this Blue Star. It's like, well, no, it's not. It's more than Blue Star.
Anything else from Ms. Webster? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Been a long time since I've stand up.
Yes, tell us
Well,
about
thank
yourself
you,
and your interest and.
Sure, my wife and I have lived in Saugatuck Township for 34 and a half years, but it's counting. And the first thing I want to say is, my interest is really just trying to help serve this community. And I think that Denise and David do a tremendous job. And in fact, I think the whole planning commission, looking at how they work together, how they achieve consensus on unanimous consensus on almost every issue. They have tremendous respect for each other, for the people that come before them, and you saw even with the single port sales thing, they're certainly upset residents there. but the way that they listened to their grievances. But also looked at, what is the zoning law and what, is legally allowed to be done, so they weren't just sort of knee-jerk reacting to things or whatever. But treating people with respect and understanding of what their concern was for preserving sort of the wooded rural environment of that section of the township. I became involved much more in the township with the Lakeshore overlay. So the one thing is we're very fortunate to live on Lake Michigan. And bought the home decades ago. It was a really charming wooded environment, very rural, very much summer cottages. So I would say probably half of Lakeshore Drive was summer cottages. Many of them not even heated, shut down over the winter. And we've seen this radical transformation of things. And some people sort of politely would say ignoring zoning rules and sort of doing whatever the heck they wanted to do and coming back and asking for forgiveness or trying to do it under the table and stuff that, these shenanigans were pretty rampant, I think. And I think I salute the township and really Lene, who I think is absolutely tremendous for trying to put some order and some regulation to preserve the small town rural community that we all came to love. So my goal was really not to replace anybody on the planning commission. And when I submitted, myself or, for this, it was not because I think, goddamn, there's something wrong here and we need to correct stuff. It was more, I need to get involved. We need to help this community do a better job with things and look at things with a fair, open-minded perspective. So that's my goal. And so whether it's working on the planning commission or other things that I can be of some help to the township to make it better and improve it, then yeah, I'm not against change, but want some measure of fair control over things. So that's kind of, where I'm coming from. But it really, Denise does a tremendous job, incredibly knowledgeable. David's done a very good even-handed job. And I think there's, they certainly deserve reappointment if that's appropriate with you guys.
Couple questions, Doug, do you live here full time or do you winter somewhere else or anything?
We would love to be able to winter something ourselves, but we live here full time.
Okay. What I appreciate you coming here, even even though you're probably thinking the
Good job, I think.
Sure.
They have
No.
actually done a really
Yes,
good job from my, perspective in the left field bleachers.
I just appreciate you coming here for us to meet you. It's happened, I'm sure Daniel's told you and Denise, and Daniel's a perfect example of, did you apply twice
Maybe 3 times.
to the planning commission?
Yeah, at least 3 times, at least 3.
And we were like, no, not yet. Okay, but there are people who have to resign for whatever reasons. But can you talk about, is this kind of like your interest area, or are there other areas in the township that you could see yourself like, hey, I have some.
I guess I would
Talent in this area.
be
I have
open to
in
things.
this area.
I'd be open to things. I think I have a good judgment and inquisitive mind. So my original profession was as a journalist. So I worked for CBS News. And you were taught, this is back in the days when CBS was the blue chip of network news operations. And you were taught to be fair, to be objective, how to ask questions, how to listen. I mean, that's one of the biggest things as a journalist was not jumping on and asking the next question, but letting people talk and then asking follow-up questions to ferret out the truth and come to a reasoned, independent, in our case, piece on the network news. And so that's what I think I bring to the table. I don't have an engineering degree. I'm not an architect. But I think I do have a pretty good judgment and a pretty sort of even, solid education background. So I would be happy to do things where my skill set would help the township. You know, it's a little bit of sort of do-goodism, as corny as that sounds, but trying to do something to help things. So we've, you know, I've talked with Daniel about, there's obviously gonna be a difficult issue coming up with how a road is put in to deal with the washout on Lakeshore Drive, which will be very controversial. There'll be a lot of people on both sides of that. That's an issue coming up that I think, you know, for the long term of this community, what are we gonna be like in 10 years, 20 years? Lakeshore Drive is pretty precarious right now in parts. And I think the one thing, having lived on Lakeshore Drive, understanding what that lake is, and that lake wins every time. And I will tell you that from having lived on it for a long time. People don't get that. These nouveau people come in, you know, some of them with lots of money buy this home, buy this land, build these big giant homes, not understanding what that lake does and the impact of it. So looking at that, I know that there needs to be a longer term plan for how people get to their properties. So I think that's an issue that we will all be wrestling with coming up. So I'd be happy to be of assistance in trying to discuss that with people who live in that area and trying to get people to some sort of consensus about what should be done and how it should be done and what are the issues we have to deal with in doing this, thinking of the long term. But, you know, so I'm open to other things. I just think the work, I admire the planning commission. I think they've done a really good job. It's interesting as a layperson looking at them and how they work and what they do and how they sift through issues. Like the Singapore Trails thing was a good example of, you know, a pretty potentially thorny issue that they dealt with really professionally, I thought, from, you know, my layman's perspective.
Other questions or comments? I'd love to hear you tell stories about. Probably.
Someday, maybe over a glass of.
Yeah.
There's some very interesting stories.
Oh, I bet. I mean, we always ask this, so forgive me, but are all of the commissioners citizen planners? Have they gone through the course?
No, we don't,
No?
and we're not required to go do this.
We're not, no, there's no requirement, there's an encouragement to do it, and there is a budget.
Trainings,
Yeah.
some different trainings, yes, we do, I don't know if all of them, I think we all have. And, so,
I don't know.
and our bylaws say, I think we have to do at least once every
2 years.
term. We have to do
Oh, okay.
some kind of training.
And I certainly would be, were I on the planning commission, I would need to learn a lot. I understand that.
Yeah, but
Get people like Denise to pick me under her.
But the citizen planner course through Michigan State Extension School is an excellent program for new planning commissioners. It'll really get you caught up and kind of covers the gamut of material or issues that you'll be, you know, encountering.
So forgive me for asking this, opening a can of worms and an open meeting, but why don't we have alternates?
I was just wondering.
Thank you. For the planning commission.
Probably it's the size of the planning commission, it's 7 members.
Right.
So, I mean, you really, yeah,
We don't get into it, yeah,
no, not that,
nothing like, right,
very
same
rarely.
reason we don't.
Yeah, so you could have, I mean, you could have a quorum of 4 members and be down 3, so that's probably why we're
Right.
ZBA is 5 members.
That's different.
And that's a little different,
And
yeah,
it was 3.
and it was,
It was 3, so then we just got 5 and then did away with it, right?
yeah,
We still have an alternate.
Okay.
but,
Okay.
and I think there's, well, at least in a certain case that the ZBA has considered. There's a lot of residents who have the potential to have a conflict of interest, which really cuts down the pool. Where like typically the planning commission decision, you're not gonna have a ton of residents with a conflict of interest. But it probably, yeah, probably a combination of that and the size of it.
Great, any other questions? for-
You know, anyway, I would just say, I think there's an important perspective at some point of. You know, I think, look at this township, it's really several different sort of ecological systems. And you know, you have the Blue Star, you have very rural farmland. And I think Lakeshore Drive in that area is unique and different. And not that you know, you can't have just a hat on it, you have to have a whole township hat on. But understanding that and bringing that perspective, I think would be helpful to have at the township level,
Absolutely.
without being snobby. So we're.
No, acknowledging it's not, anyway, yeah, it's diverse and there are different pockets and we're representing everybody, you know, we're not just, and some people, you know, come here from Chicago and they only see like the city, how the township behaves a little bit like a city. And it's like, yes, but we also have huge places like 26 and people with no internet. How in the sticks. So, yes, thank you for saying. All right, Doug, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Okay. Any question? Okay, well,
I think we're very fortunate to have such a rich pool to draw on.
yeah, we say this every time, but they're very lucky. Yeah. And have such diverse backgrounds, seeing all of our applicants, they just bring such unique skills and life experience to the table. Well, I would like to reappoint, Commissioner Webster and Commissioner Eiley to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term set to expire June 30, 2028.
I'll support.
So I make the appointment and then you guys have to move to support it in a second.
I move to support your recommendation, is that, oh, it's written somewhere. What page is that? Okay, I'll move to approve the appointment, is that David Eiley and Denise Webster to the Planning Commission for 3-year terms set to expire on June 30th, 2028.
I'll second. We have a motion by Eldridge, support by Marcy. Assume this is a roll call.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I'll call the roll. Aldrich,
Yes.
Marcy.
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Baker, yes. Right. Again, thank you. Now you're here and you're on and we're on the. We know where you live. And be like, hey, we have this like special, or what do we call them, like a.
Advisory.
Yeah, an advisory committee.
Oh, yeah.
This would be a great way for you to get your feet wet. So, thank you, and thank you to. Yes, thank you for your service. None of these jobs are easy or well paying or glamorous, but thank you for doing that. Okay, so that brings us to the insurance proposal. Daniel and I had a nice meeting with these folks, and if you want to go ahead and
Yes.
kick off that discussion, it'd be great.
Yes, so this year what we're considering is accepting a proposal from a new insurance provider. We previously had EMC. That policy has changed a little bit, which it inspired us to go out and identify other insurance carriers that might be able to provide us with coverage that really meets all of our needs. We identified the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. This works more like a management pool. So we would pay into the pool. The kind of cool thing is that if there's leftover money, it doesn't go to investors. They actually will cut you a check back if they've collected more than they need to. They offer grants, so they're all about risk management. So they have their various training programs. They have recommendations on how you can implement risk management, and they're willing even to, like through this grant program, provide funding opportunities to implement those risk management methods. So it's about it's a little more than we've been paying with EMC, but it's very much so in the range, so I think this year from EMC, our quote was 25,000, so this is coming in at 26,000. So it's definitely within the budget for this year, so I'm comfortable with that. But I'd be happy to go into any more details about the additional policy. I will say that there are some areas where I actually think that we're doing a lot better, like especially with cybersecurity. What's the word I'm looking for? The policy cover for like cyber was a lot lower with the MC. We were looking at more like $2 million coverage if you have any kind of like cyber attack, so that's nice. But yeah, I think that this is, we reviewed it, Abby and I sat in a meeting. Our attorney, Nick Curcio, reviewed this. His opinion is that looking at the EMC proposal and looking at the MMRMA proposal, that this is the best move for the township.
Insurance is tricky, and it's never fun, and you never feel like great about it, I don't think, because it's expensive and. Could we talk about the one consideration, just so we're talking about it in an open meeting, that we kind of wrestled with, but at the end of the day felt good about compared to our other options, was if somebody comes to us and says, you need to give us a special whatever, use something, and we're like, no. And then they're like, well, we're gonna take you to court for that. That would come out of our pocket.
Yes.
In this, with this type of insurance.
So
But if somebody comes in and says, you did the zoning thing and it negatively affected our, you know, how much the property is worth, and we're gonna sue you for $2 million, that they would cover the judgment, the payout, but potentially with a higher profile, it would behoove them to have their legal counsel
Yes,
involved from the start.
Yeah.
Am I saying this right? I wanna make sure.
you are saying this right, yeah, so there is a change in the zoning coverage with the MMRMA proposal, so. Prior to, with the EMC insurance policy, any zoning, any lawsuit related to zoning could be covered. As long as it met certain criteria. In this case, if we had a claim against the township related to zoning that did not involve a judgment. So that the person, you know, filing the claim was not looking for like any kind of monetary relief.
They just want us to change something,
They-
reverse something.
Exactly, yeah, if they, let's say it's a marijuana facility and we deny them. And they, you know, they're arguing that actually the zoning ordinance should allow a marijuana facility at this location. They don't want any money out of the case, but they want us to reconsider or to grant them approval. The legal costs associated with defending the township's position would not be covered with the MMRMA proposal. However, if we had somebody file a claim against the township related to zoning, but they were looking for a monetary judgment, they were looking to be compensated for something, then this insurance policy would cover both the judgment if we lost and the cost of litigation.
What historically, I think we talked about this, so forgive me for forgetting. What have our legal fees looked like for claims that don't involve a monetary judgment?
That's a very hard question to answer, so Denise probably remembers we had a case.
And it's still ongoing to my knowledge.
Yeah, and we are relying on that judgment that we got from the court, so, but we had a case with, an applicant who was requesting a special use to run a business out of their property, and the planning commission denied the special use. They continued to operate, I think we filed a lawsuit against them, we settled and we got a court judgment. I don't know, probably under $5,000 that costs us, like all around, and to, file that judgment, there's still staff time that's involved in that. But there are other cases that are a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive. So I think everybody knows that we are in a high profile lawsuit with the Dunes Coastal Alliance. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. To be clear, everything that is currently being covered by our current provider, EMC, will continue to be covered. So we can.
All active.
Yeah, all active lawsuits that our insurance provider had said that they will cover, they are obligated to continue to cover. So that won't change. Any new lawsuit, however, will fall under this new policy. So if they're seeking a monetary judgment, the policy will cover it. If they're not, the policy will not cover it. So if we were looking at the current case with the Coastal Alliance, most of that would not have been covered. So that would have all been out of pocket. So it potentially could be a lot of money. I think that's why we spend we encourage training with our planning commissioners. I think that's why, one of the reasons why we want to update our policies about how we identify and appoint planning commissioners and zoning board of appeals members. And yeah, so, all of that, there's nothing you can do that will fully prevent a lawsuit if somebody wants to question a zoning determination. But there's things that you can do to mitigate the risk, so I think that's, been our strategy right now. But yeah, we've been fortunate with EMC where prior claims are all covered. All those existing claims will continue to be covered. New claims, however, if they're not seeking any kind of, monetary judgment, will no longer be covered by the policy. I think, yeah, so if that helps you all.
It helps a lot.
Does that include then their legal, like Jim is EOC, correct?
Jim Shaw
Okay,
is
just because of
EMC.
all the history and
Yes.
brain knowledge and.
So the case, so that case will continue to be covered by EMC. Anything new will not,
Right,
but they are obligated to continue to represent us. So that won't change.
Any changes to the budget, just knowing that,
A very minor, I think it's probably $1,000 change,
I mean, just kind of like planning for like, we don't know when we would need, a lot of money for legal.
At this point, I would say no, because with our legal budget, we really don't use a lot, like I believe this year is probably between 25 and 30,000 I put in the budget. This current end of the fiscal year, I don't even know if we spent half of the legal budget, so like right now, we have very low costs for legal. And it's spread out, sometimes like it's a water issue, or it's a sewer issue, or it's a road issue. I think we're very cognizant about making sure it's going to the right fund. But we don't typically have like overwhelming legal bills. And again, it goes back to that risk mitigation, having a really strong planning commission who is very specific when they make a motion, why they're making that decision. That's incredibly important, that it's not just, I like this project or I don't like this project, or I don't want the public to yell at me anymore. Or, I like this developer, we're making decisions based on the zoning ordinance and then referring to the zoning, like specific sections of the zoning ordinance that support those decisions. That's really critical. But yeah, I would not at this point make any changes, just because I think that the budget for the legal expenses is already kind of padded. And we're just not seeing those expenses right now. But in the future, that might be something that we think about, that, 1 year, or hopefully not over a few years, but at some point we might have to bolster that legal budget for the general fund.
Like a motion, please. I'll move to approve the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority coverage proposal effective July 1, 2025 to July 1, 2026.
Motion by Marcy, is there support?
Support.
Support by Osmo. Roll call.
No,
Any further discussion? Thank you for your work on this. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Go to item number 3 under new business is legal center service agreement.
yeah, this is 76. Yeah, this is jumping question, yeah. 76.
Go ahead and kick off this discussion, please, Dean.
So we've received a proposed contract between Saugatuck Township and the Allegheny County Legal Assistance Center, and the director, Linda Teeter, is here today. So to point out Linda, and this is to subsidize services to Saugatuck Township residents. The contract is for $1,500. And the center does support self-representation in civil court matters. So what's being requested is $1,500 to subsidize the cost of the legal center in serving township residents. This past year, 60 residents of the township received free legal services from the center. 70% of whom have an annual income of less than $50,000. So I think that's important to point out. And then it's all of a gamut in terms of what services are being offered. I think divorce is probably the number one service that township residents got the most support in. But the age range is impressive too. A lot of different age groups, even older members of the community. So this is something that the township has not historically supported. But many municipalities last year, this year are now providing or now entering into contracts with the legal assistance center to subsidize the costs of these legal services to their residents. It's also a nice thing that we could do on the website, actually promote to our residents that this is a service that's being offered in Allegheny County, that the township does subsidize this service, and that we can encourage folks who don't have the means to seek legal representation, that this is an option that's available to them.
Do we have questions or would you like?
Curious how our residents would be aware of this service, is it when they if they have a need and go to the county, is that when they're informed of it, or how does that work?
Yeah.
Yes. Come on. No, you've been here before. We forget the details sometimes.
Thank you. My name is Linda Teeter. I'm the Director of Finance and Fundraising for the Legal Assistance Center. So really good question. A majority of it is actually word of mouth. But we are working on our marketing, and so I would propose with your winter tax bills that we do have an insert that you can put in with your winter tax bill, so everybody that gets a tax bill gets it. But we do find word of mouth. You would find we do have now 15 municipalities who have contracts. Some of your neighbors, like Township, Manulus Township, Casco has had for like 5 years. And it is a way of supporting the work that's done in the legal assistance center.
So if somebody wanted a small claim court situation, they would call you to say it's possible or not, or?
So I think there's 3 ways. You have brochures out here, that Morgan has, that hands out to, to people if they come in, your residents. So they would come to the courthouse, they can call. If they call, our staff would also offer to have a Zoom meeting with them, so they could save a trip to the courthouse. They can send forms to them electronically and then do a Zoom meeting and then fill them out while your resident would fill them out, and then they could print them out and then make the trip to the courthouse. So first, a majority of persons this year will probably be 3,400 that are served at the courthouse. But then by phone and Zoom as well.
And we can do some work on our own, like, we have that e-newsletter that we put out every month. We can include that, we can either, I'm delighted to include that the township has entered into the proposal. And then information associated with the legal center, and then we can always have it as like a standing item at the end, like we have our, our meetings, and maybe there's contact information for the legal center. Very easy, we have a services tab on the website to add that into the services that are available in the area, so the township can do things to let our residents know that this is a resource that they can access.
Just so you know, I carry cards with me and I routinely go to Christian Neighbors and churches around here just to leave them. We just were before Lakeshore Women Who Care, so, and everybody there got information, and it's interesting that it is sort of word of mouth that's the best, but all of those things that, the person that we spoke about had said that she Googled Allegan County, their website, and we popped up. So just so you know, it is legal assistance and not legal advice. And so, everyone who comes in, we ask their name, their age range, their income range, the reason for their visit. And then if it turns out to be legal, it's a 501c3 organization, so we do have a attorney referral list. We have a resource of all sorts of resources that we partner with in the county, so that when your resident, anybody who comes in or on the phone, feels like they were listened to and they were given some resources.
Linda, what's your capacity like right now? Do you guys feel like, you're at capacity, or, like for people that you're able to serve? Is it a situation where sometimes it's like, we're at capacity, sorry, check back in a month, or do you feel like you're dealing with the demands?
I believe they do, meet all of those demands. We've moved recently from the lower level of the courthouse to the first level, right across from when you walk in. And yes, you might have to wait a couple of minutes like you do at circuit court records, but we always have 2 staff available. And some days, Mondays and Fridays are big, so they'll have 3 people there, and then you'll see people out in the courthouse lobby, our staff sitting with the person. So I think if you ask me, did I think our capacity at 10,000 people would be max? Probably, but right now they are always able to meet that.
Yeah.
And it is a walk-in basis if you come to the courthouse.
Any other questions for Linda?
Thank you
Thank you for
thank you
being
so
here.
much on behalf of the board of directors. Thank you for considering this. It does make a difference in people's daily lives.
Thanks so much.
Well, if someone's ready to make a motion, is great.
I can make a motion to approve the legal assistance contract between Saugatuck Township and Alvin County Legal Assistance Center to expire on June 30, 2026.
Possible. We have a motion and support. Further discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, moving on to the number 4 under new business cemetery proposal.
Yeah, so this is kind of exciting,
Yeah.
so,
Exciting cemeteries in Columbia can be.
But but you know that we had done some planning work, so we had done a survey, we put together a master plan. In terms of what we wanna, what the public is looking for in terms of burial options. And then what our capacity currently is. Riverside Cemetery is very popular, probably because its proximity to downtown Saugatuck. We are totally out of cremation spots. So there's none available, they're only available in Douglas Cemetery, so this proposal is to design and engineer a columbaria with associated landscape elements, so like kind of like a patio seating area, other landscape items, and then also a kind of beautification of that intersection itself, where we're kind of taking away that traditional Riverside Cemetery sign and using that as just a general beautification of the intersection, and then creating a formal entrance to the cemetery on Clear Brook. It's also part of a bigger vision to utilize the cemeteries as green space. So it's not just a place that, people go for either just to bury their loved ones or just to visit their loved ones, but it's something that it's a place that the community can utilize as passive recreation space. And so looking at general beautification of the cemetery, but the goal is to bring back cremation, a cremation burial option to Riverside. And then offer a option that's not been offered ever before in the township, which is above ground cremation burial. That was something that we saw in our survey that people were interested in. And we have seen a general trend away from traditional burials to cremations. So this is just for the engineering services, it's with Viridis Design Group, who completed the master plan. But they would do all the, the associated survey work, the design work, the engineering work, putting together all the construction documents and putting it out to bid. At that point, there would be a separate fee for construction administration, and then the cost of construction would all be separate too. That's all been included in the 2025-2026 budget, but this is the first step to get started. So our goal is really to see construction start in spring, so we would like to get the design work underway over the summer and into the fall. But the cost for this is going to be, I think it's $42,250 for the design, the engineering, and then putting together the construction documents and bidding out the project. Do you have any other specific questions?
We kind of went through it at our last meeting, and I think we really do need this, so I feel comfortable approving this.
How many cremains could this house, or are we thinking?
So the company that we're gonna be working with, the Viridis has identified that this, I forgot that we did talk about this, I showed you on the computer, it's called ICOF. They're out of Minnesota, but they do columbarias all over the country, they do just beautiful work. We told them that we would like to see something between 150 and 300 spots. One thing that we did talk to ICOF about was the potential to have multiple phases, so maybe it's not in our budget to reach 300, but we could always design something that's larger and then implement phase one now, and then later phases as we have funds available. Other communities do that, I believe that they have one up in the Traverse City area that's got 3 phases. But they really can do anything, it's all custom work, so Viridis will be working directly with ICOF to design the columbaria, and then Viridis will be doing all the additional landscape and all the engineering work. But we told them 150 to 300 spots is what we're looking for, that's kind of like the sweet spot.
Anything else?
would like to make a motion? I'll move to approve the proposal for professional landscape architecture services for Riverside Cemetery, Columbaria and landscape improvements.
I'll support. The motion and support. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Great. Brings us to our last action item, which is year-end budget amendment.
So this is very typical and also very unusual because we typically have a end of year budget amendment. What's unusual about it is I don't have the fiscal amendment to provide you for multiple reasons. One reason is that there was a budget amendment that was prepared that I've been essentially just updating so that you wouldn't have to look at one in April, May, and then June. So there is a general one that is prepared. The other reason is that we have not been able to enter in to our software any additional revenue that's come in, any expenditures, all of that has to be entered in once our server is back up and running, so we don't have the final numbers. There's not really been anything that's terribly unusual, which is good. I am kind of anticipating some significant bills coming in related to the server, because we had to buy a new server and we've had two IT companies coordinating, so that might be an item that goes over. But essentially what we were trying to do with this end of year amendment was account for additional revenue that was coming in. I think one item was from marijuana, we had some higher building permits coming in, so accounting for that, and then. I don't think that there was too many expenditures where we were going over, and if anything, I remember lowering some areas, like we could lower the, I'm trying to think what we had to lower, or what we could lower, but there wasn't anything unusual, so. Essentially, it's what we would be asking you to do now, because. Typically, we'd like to have the budget amendment before you, so you know what you're exactly approving, but because we can't. The state of Michigan does not allow us to approve a budget amendment after the close of the fiscal year, so. It's either now or we can't do it at all, so the request would be that. You approve an end of the year budget amendment that would allow township staff. To prevent any overages in any of the cost centers and to accommodate any additional revenue. So that's kind of how I might phrase that motion.
There's a sample motion, but I wonder if like we could just tailor that one like as verbally presented due to the fact that the server is, not.
You could do that, yeah, because another big part of the budget amendment. Was moving more funds into the capital project fund. Which was for the renovation of the exterior of the building. So that was really the heart of it, was identifying where we had more revenue coming in. And where we could trim down on some expenditures and then increasing the appropriation out from the general fund into the capital project fund. So I guess we could, now that that's verbally explained, we could. As verbally presented, and then I will be able to get you like the final budget amendment so you can see actually what happened, but there's nothing. Everything is kind of sticking to what we've been talking about for the whole year.
There's no surprises.
There's no surprises, there's no like additional projects, there's no really unexpected expenditures. It's just the fact that we don't have access to any of our accounting material right now.
Would that be covered by this new company?
Oh man, that would have been, yeah, that actually is a kind of cool claim, right?
Well, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
I'd like to move to approve the end of year budget amendment as verbally presented due to server issues.
We have a motion, is there support?
Support.
We have a motion and support, is this roll call for a budget amendment?
Let's just do it.
Yeah, okay, any further discussion? No, I'll call the roll. Marcy?
Yes.
Osmond?
Yes.
Bickford, yes. Aldrich? Yes. Okay. Okay, we have nothing. Under item 14, 15, any public comments? Thank you for being here, public. We don't have anybody
Nobody.
online, okay. Board member comments, any comments from the trustees?
I have one, just about our earlier conversation. I was in Stewart, Florida last year. And they have roundabouts everywhere. And there's one called Confusion Corner that has 8 major streets coming into it with a railroad crossing on at least one of the streets.
Wow.
But it works, and I really think, I've seen the comments about it being too small. We knew the fire department could get through it, we knew a semi could get through it, we knew someone pulling a boat could get through it. I really think the problem, and I don't know how to address it, is education. I sat on Old Allegan Road while 7 cars tailgated going north, and how to educate people that, and the person in front of me was frozen, he didn't know what to do. How to educate people that that's just not how it works, but beyond that, I love it, and I think it might be a good option. I don't understand how you can do a study without development already, but maybe they do a study considering 30 families moving in, but yeah, I've become a huge fan. And I have to travel it many times every day. With caution.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah, we go the same way,
Yeah, it's a lot better though than what it was before.
Yes.
That was taking your life into your own hands.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
There is some of that, yes.
Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
Any other board comments? Stacy? All right, well then I think I'll go ahead and adjourn today's meeting at 12:12 p.m. Thank you all. Thank you for forgiving me for being. No makeup.
This was casual day.
Yeah.
I saw your scooter and I'm like, yay, Steve, you're casual. I know, I'm very